Hello, my name's Ian Bent and I'm a member of the Mill Road History Society. My topic in this presentation is number 44A Mill Road, a building on the corner of Mill Road and Covent Garden. The building looks rather forlorn today. David Jones, in his book Hideous Cambridge, doesn't mince his words. He says, "There can be no doubt about the building on the corner of Covent Garden. This is one of the vilest in the whole of Cambridge." Until 2 years ago or so, it was the much-loved Sally Ann charity shop. Now it's empty, its future in doubt. But it wasn't always so. It was originally a cinema. Not just any cinema, but the first purpose-built cinema in Cambridge. So, a significant historical building. Before 1913, when it was opened, films were shown in buildings such as the Guildhall and the Corn Exchange, buildings designed for quite different purposes. For the new building, the architect had in mind a jewel-like entrance, with its ticket office centrally placed, flanked by 2 double doors. Above it was the banner, Cinema Theatre, in mosaic, and above that a semicircular window with a parallel curved arch over it in red stone. To either side was a tower, the corners also in red stone, with circular window high up, and a copper dome and a pinnacle to top it all off. All very grand. And here is more or less the reality. An artist's impression of the finished building, with ancient motor cars, onlookers, and people thronging the entrance waiting their turn to pay. You can imagine the towers with red stone at the corners and white infilling panels. In the period 1927 to 1935, the Playhouse was operated jointly with the Central Cinema on Hobson Street, the Tivoli Cinema at Mitcham's Corner, and the New Theatre on St Andrew's Street, long since demolished. It was in 1930 that sound equipment was installed for the first time, and the age of the talkies began. In this photograph, you can see the kiosk jutting forward at the entrance, and you can even see the lady sitting in it waiting to sell you a ticket. And the doorman to the left, ready to check your ticket and to direct you. And also flanking posters advertising forthcoming films. While still called the Playhouse in the banner, and also vertically at both sides of the facade, beneath the banner reads Union Cinemas Playhouse, following the takeover by Union Cinemas and Company in 1935. In this photograph, you can see clearly the 3 white marble steps at the front leading up to the kiosk and the doors. For many people, walking up these steps is still a happy memory today. As you entered, you would walk into the central vestibule and then be directed left or right into the passageway shown here, this is the right-hand one, and onto the double doors leading into the auditorium itself. And finally, you'd experience the full glamour of the interior. The downward sloping gangways with rows of seats on either side, the usherettes, the proscenium arch with coloured curtains concealing the screen behind, and the decorative pillars with curly capitals, the mouldings, the ornamental wall panels, a veritable paradise. Note the curved roof with the ceiling boss in the centre over the screen. Keep that image in mind, if you will. The screen, incidentally, could be rolled away to reveal a small stage behind it, on which dance and other live entertainments regularly took place. And when you turned round, there was the gracefully curving balcony, the ceiling bosses, and the projection room containing the projector, the projectionist, the sound system, and other equipment. Now, this is something that many Cambridge citizens remember quite vividly. Queues for the showings extended back into Covent Garden along the side wall, and many a child with a handful of coins turned them in the soft brick to produce these half-spherical indentations. You can detect three distinct sizes: the penny, the halfpenny or halfpenny, and the farthing. Others carved their initials or expressions of love. These continued all the way to the end of the wall between waist and head height and are perfectly preserved there today. The Playhouse closed its doors finally in 1956. It was locked up and stood unused for 7 years, until in 1963, Finefair, who already had a shop on Fitzroy Street, received planning permission to convert it into Cambridge's very first new-style supermarket. At that point, the entire facade was ripped off, including the towers, and the pitiful result was as you see it in this picture. Poor in quality because taken direct from the local newspaper, but sufficient to reveal the decorative panelling of the auditorium's side walls. Finefair levelled the auditorium floor, concealed the original wall decoration behind plain panels, fitted a first floor and ceiling to make a storage area upstairs, and downstairs laid out aisles lined with open shelves where shoppers could pick up items for themselves instead of having to ask for them at a counter, and put them in their baskets. At the front, they built a new one-story structure, across which they installed a bank of 5 checkouts, which if you look very closely, you can just about see in that photograph, and provided a separate entrance and exit. Finefair closed in 1984, and the Salvation Army, based in Tennyson Road, took a 20-year lease on the property. They removed the supermarket fixtures but retained the shop layout and the entrance and exit. It was unusual among charity shops at that time in having its own laundry and staff canteen facilities upstairs, where the sorting of clothing and other donations went on, the sorters working directly under the barrel vault of the old cinema. And if you poked behind the partition walls and screens around the edge of the upstairs, you could rediscover fragments of the original cinema decor. In this photograph, taken in 2013, you can see the vaulted ceiling above what used to be the screen, just as you saw it in the earlier slide in this presentation. In this shot, you can see one of the several ceiling bosses that held the overhead lights, with much of its gilding and its paint still remaining. There are also gold and silver mouldings and painted decorative figures to be found in the hidden spaces and corners in front of which the staff used until recently to work. In 2013, we put on an exhibition about the history of the building, with photographs and information panels on display boards. Over the course of the week, it proved very popular, and visitors left their comments on sheets provided, with remarks such as, "A lovely exhibition, brings back so many memories of how Mill Road was in the past. I remember seeing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in the Playhouse in the 40s. And I was a frequent cinema goer to the Playhouse and the Kinema in the late 40s and 50s. The left-hand display board in that photograph there, with the heading, "Are your initials here?" displayed several shots of the exterior side wall with its name carvings. And sure enough, one of the visitor comments read, "Single photo on front board, Top right-hand corner, DIBBS, Dibs, signed Roger Dibbs. Also displayed at that exhibition was this photograph, taken on a box camera, showing the 3 Playhouse staff in the summer of 1935, off duty at the rear of the building, and you can just see the roofs of some of the Mill Street houses behind. They were the doorman, Percy Johnson, Albert Buttons, surname unknown, on the left, and on the right, Stan Houchin, the news film runner. To our delight, one of the visitor comments was, "Hey, I'm in the photograph with Buttons," signed Stan Houchin. What a treat for us. So we went and interviewed Stan, who by then was aged 94. His duties, which he remembered absolutely clearly, included manning the 2 projectors, operating the screen curtains, raising and dimming the house lights, and various other jobs. But his main task concerned the day's newsreel. This was shared with another cinema, the New Theatre on St Andrews Street, where he had to go after it had been shown there, pick up the reel, plus the reels of the feature film, and cycle back furiously to the Playhouse in 5 minutes flat. If it took him a minute longer, money would be docked from his wages. As we saw at the beginning, the building is now unoccupied. The owner put forward plans a couple of years ago to convert the upper story into student flats, while keeping the ground floor as retail. Since then, not a word has been heard, and the building remains in limbo. If this presentation has been of interest to you, do follow up by clicking on the middle link here to read the report that Kieran Perkins and I produced in 2014. And if you'd like to join the mailing list of the Mill Road History Society to receive its newsletter and information on events, click on the 3rd link.